Right, I think I'm just going to start now because I'm a bit tired. Good evening, everyone. I'm a little bit... I might sound a bit off. My body is rejecting an attempted invasion of illness and failing the illness part. So again, while I might sound congested, that is all it is. Am I on the correct channel? I don't see the chat moving. That's confusing. I know I have to actually go there and check, even though oh, yeet. Well, that's a good sign at least. Well, I'm live. Okay, cool. We're on the right channel. Okay. So, today is not going to be about Brexit until the end with the SNP, because they have a very bold statement to make. And I, of course, want to give them every opportunity to air their grievances. Before PMQ started today, the speaker made a huge fuss about one of the new clerks. They sit in front of the speaker, the three people, because one of them retired to be replaced with the first whammon. And this is a huge deal. So naturally, MPs wish to talk about it. And I'm going to let them, because I have my own remarks to add to the end of it. Things I would like to praise. And I'm going to make it a weekly occurrence, where they'll say something, they'll praise, commend, commiserate, and, I don't know, congratulate. The 3 C's. They'll do that every week, they always do. I am going to congratulate. Every week they do it. And I'm going to get very creative. So this can only end well. So hello Furry Kitten, Calfsot, Alex, Vomit Sausage, Andre, Horny Hippo, Victoria, Sean, Takeout Joe, and Debs. Hello, and welcome, new person, which is you obviously, Debs. Just got to put some earphones in, and then we will jump straight into PMQs, the cancer, which isn't as bad as it has been. But hello Leslie and Scott. There is a there are a number of talking points that need to be addressed. I'm going to try and get to them. I just have to be patient, of course. So let's move that there so I can see the chat. I can't see the chat there, the microphone's blocking it. There we go. Hello Mary, and have we left yet? And yes, hello Ametrine Queen. Here we go. Order.
Order. Questions to the Prime Minister. Craig Tracy.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I add my congratulations to Sarah Davis on achieving this position and saying how good it always is to see women in high office. Mr. Speaker, the tragedy of Jallianwala Bagh in 1919 is a shameful scar on British Indian history.
For those that don't know, this is an event that happened, obviously she said 1919, when Colonel Reginald Dyer of the British Indian Army ordered troops to rifle crowds of Indians that had gathered to peacefully protest the arrest and deportation of 2 national leaders, one being Satya Pal and Saifuddin Kichlu. This actually led to some rather interesting splinters. The first being that it led to the non-cooperation movement, which is very well known from 1920 to 22 because it involved Mahatma Gandhi, who eventually, to save face, dissolved it because of a certain violence that occurred. The other was that Dyer was praised by the House of Lords. House of Commons condemned him outright. They in fact even went so far as to censure him, or censure, and force him to retire. House of Lords tried to get him a CBE, which thankfully was rejected. And that is your history lesson for the day, everyone. There was a lot of horrible argumentation that goes into what happened. It did lead eventually the non-cooperation movement, eventually in 1935 I think, to the first semi-democratic process, government, sorry, in India, which is fantastic. Thought I'd just inject this actual factual history for all of you because I think it's quite important. And I'm obviously one of those people who likes to share when he learns something or has something interesting to add. Hello, Green Pony and Angry Scotsman and Flamesword. Hello, Mary Hale as well.
As Her Majesty the Queen said before visiting Jallianwala Bagh in 1997, it is a distressing example of our past history with India. We deeply regret what happened and the suffering caused. I'm pleased that today the UK-India relationship is one of collaboration, partnership, prosperity and security. Indian diaspora make an enormous contribution to British society.
And they did during the war. They provided us with food, ammunition and troops. Now obviously it's a shame the circumstances, but we are indebted to them for what they did for us. I'm 100% in favour of India in that regard, and of course introducing us to our national dish, the curry.
And I'm sure the whole House wishes to see the UK's relationship with India continue to flourish. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Well, hello Teddy, I'm sorry you can't stay long. I would like to take the opportunity, and I've got to get my book out for this because this is very important, as is all the virtue signalling that always crops up. I would like to now do something virtuous as well, or some virtue signalling, and commemorate. I'm sure the whole House will want to do this in the chat. Press whatever one it is for respect when I'm done. Commend and commemorate all those that rimmed their partners this morning for Queen and Country. It says here, press F for respect. Every week I'm going to come up with a new one.
Craig Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I fully agree with the Prime Minister when she's repeatedly said that we need to both honour the result of the referendum and our manifesto commitments, which mean leaving the customs union and single market. So does my right honourable friend agree with me that if the best way to do that, rather than delivering a diluted deal which is unrecognisable to many of those who voted to leave, is to go under WTO rules, we should grab that opportunity and believe in the ability of the British people and a Conservative government to make a success of it?
I thank you to all those in the chat who wrote F. Thank you. That was I've been holding on to that all day, and it just makes me chuckle. It's rare that I find something funny, I guess. I support no deal now. I support World Trade Organization rules. I support this because I believe we can make a success of it. Because the risk is so big, though, the majority of those in that chamber don't support it, which is a shame. I'm sorry you disagree, Peter. I'm hitting X to doubt. Okay. Hello, Jonas. Hello, Saki. And hello, Glenn, Godiva, and Neil. Yeah, I noticed. I support no deal at this point because I don't see her deal doing well for us. I don't see any of the other options on the table doing well for us other than shackling us to the EU, but having no say over how they govern us. Which I guess there's a certain irony to it, since at the start the Prime Minister was talking about India, a country we used to govern, you know, with the whole empire thing. And yes, WTO rules, Leslie, all 24 of them are fine. In fact, everyone is signed up to it anyway. So what's the problem?
Well, can I agree with my honourable friend that I believe the Conservative government will make a success of whatever the situation is in relation to Brexit.
I'm very sorry that my levity disturbed you.
But I still believe that actually the best Brexit for the UK is to be able to leave in an orderly way, to be able to leave with a deal. And I do want to ensure that that Brexit does indeed honour the result of the referendum.
What kind of anal beads are those?
There are members of this House who don't want to honour the result of the referendum. I do.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Oh God, I didn't think of a second bit of virtue signalling for the evening, so unfortunately you're going to have to hear him be not just virtuous, but he's going to add more virtuous. Oh, sorry, more virtue, and it's just, oh dear God. Yeah. We did, Leslie. We helped write the WTO rules. So why it's such so difficult? I don't get it. Painal beads. Thank you, Teddy. That's what they are. Oh, Andy Turner. May only has iron corset. Well, her corset's made of rust, actually. Actually, I'd say it's oxidized copper at this point. It's just blue and barely hanging on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased that the Prime Minister mentioned what happened in Jallianwala and the issues of the massacre at Amritsar 100 years ago. I think the people, in memory of those that lost their lives and the brutality of what happened, deserve a full, clear and unequivocal apology for what took place on that occasion. And I join...
But does that mean that this current government has to do that? I personally believe those who are responsible for it then should have apologised. If they didn't, then it doesn't mean that everyone else continues. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But of course, they'll say sorry anyway. Which I guess might do some good. I mean, we have pretty good relations with India.
Join the Prime Minister and yourself, Mr. Speaker, in welcoming Sarah Davis to her appointment. I'm sure she's going to be absolutely brilliant. I remember the day she started work in the House, and she's done incredibly well. And also, Mr. Speaker, I welcome my honourable friend, the new member for Newport West, who's here today, who is, I believe, a very worthy successor to the late Paul Flynn. Today, Mr. Speaker, marks the 21st anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, a defining moment in Irish history which allowed peace to prevail. It was a great achievement, and I pay tribute to the work done by the Labour government at that time, as well as those on all sides of Ireland, north and south, and of this House, in achieving the crucial breakthrough in the peace process, which we have to ensure maintains. And as we continue to find discussions on a compromise over the Brexit deal that could shape our future economic relationship with Europe, protecting jobs, rights and our economy, we shouldn't forget communities across this country that have been abandoned by this government in the here and now. Official figures show that 9 of the 10 most deprived council areas in this country have seen cuts that are almost 3 times the average of any other council. Why has the Prime Minister decided to cut the worst off areas in our country more than the most well off?
Right, so first things first, I'm going to address the chat. Teddy asked how much to Motorboat May. Show me the cash first. So Blue Footy Booby, I was from Surrey. I grew up there. Surrey is my home. Paul Gascoigne, you owe no apologies. You're not late. I started early. People saying fuck you, Corbyn. Fair enough. Let's solve the Irish problem. Invade the Republic of Ireland. Yes. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. I do apologise. I'm going to mute myself for a second. My apologies, I had to sneeze. The issue with the Good Friday Agreement is that it's always built on this premise that they're still prepped for war. The Irish are going to go to war with each other again, and then obviously drag England into it, because that happened last time and that was kind of unacceptable. I don't see it as much of a threat, but I don't live there, so perhaps I don't understand it as well as I could understand it. Perhaps it is far more threatening than I understand. Let's go with that. Omegon censored himself. I did, because I sneezed very loud, and I didn't want you to hear that. So yeah, I can't really muffle it. Although my nose is quite sore, so I'm having to use these ridiculous, like, baby wipes for my nose, because I'm a snowflake. To address the council issue, I did notice the least well-off councils, some of whom are almost bankrupt because of their own stupidity. So they need to be bailed out. Some had to take out loans because of their own ineptitude at managing their own finances, which was like a devolved administration thing. Counties then having more responsibility. Others, yes, others have been left behind. But there is this annoying little mentality he has. How does Omegon sneeze underwater? With great difficulty. I did notice that buy the good stuff, yeah, you're right. That with some of the counties, that he's trying to... It's quite tricky. Some of the counties, not all of them, qualified as being proportionate, because they're not all... The cuts made sense when compared to wealthier counties, in the sense that they were paying similar amounts of taxes. Okay? Not all of them, because cost of living varies in each county. There are so many variables in this instance. It really irritated me when I was looking at this and taking down notes. One of the glaring weaknesses I saw in this argument that some counties were left behind was the cost of living. On the thumbnail, I put Sargon of Akkad and Swindon, because he's going to bring up Swindon. I'm not clickbaiting you, I'm just simply, Swindon is going to be his focal point compared to Surrey. Surrey is a very different county to... Oh, hang on, which one is... Hang on, I don't actually know my geography. Give me a second. It's not the same... I had it written down as well. That's a stupid thing. Swindon is... Is it Wiltshire? Oh, I feel like an idiot. Yeah, it's Wiltshire. The wealth of Wiltshire and the wealth of people in it is not the same as that of Surrey. Surrey, though, by the way, I grew up poor in Surrey. It is very difficult to get anywhere. It's very hard to succeed. So just because Surrey has wealthier or more wealth, or does better, yet still pays more, doesn't mean that they are being given advantages. That's not the case. Oh, thank you, Tom of Gulf City. And yes, it is the land of muesli and rickets, you're right. Britain's loads of untapped oil. No, oh well, Angry Scotsman, it's possible. Thank you, Prospero, for also pointing out it was Wiltshire. I knew it was, but I had a moment there. Also with Surrey, they get singled out a little by Corbyn, because I think it was a year ago, Surrey was given a little money. There were rumours that they were given a bit of money to be sweet. Problem is, there's no proof of that. It's hearsay. It is rumour at best. It's nothing. But because of this, it is perceived that Surrey get preferential treatment. They don't. There are poor people in every county. That is a fact. I know this because I lived in one of those counties. I live in one now, and I qualify as low income. Just. Kind of. I work hard, okay? IRL. But another argument he's going to make will be, again, back to last week's post hoc ergo propter hoc. It'll be that again. And I think the blanket statement of it is irritating. There is some validity to it, of course there is. But to generalise the entire situation, it kind of besmirches the situation. Because you're not treating it carefully, you're thinking the only solution to resolve it is to simply throw money at it and it sticks. That is irresponsible and leaves you open to basically wasting money. I know you don't really care for money, but you really should. Financially challenged. Jesus Christ.
Can I first of all say to the Right Honourable Gentleman that he's right to reference the 21st anniversary of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, which was indeed an important moment in Northern Irish history and which has led to the peace that we have seen subsequently. And can I welcome the actions that were taken by politicians of all parties in this House and elsewhere to ensure that that peace was possible and that agreement was possible as well. Can I say to the Honourable Gentleman, in relation to the issue of council funding, actually councils do have more money available this year, a real terms increase. The Right Honourable Gentleman voted against that money being available.
That's actually a really interesting point, because I saw that. I'm going to come back here a second, because when I heard it, I decided to, just to prove I would actually do it, I went to Twitter and I actually tweeted at him. I know I'm not going to get a reply, because it's him. And I'll screen share it now. Not that one. This one, there we go. I did tweet to Jeremy Corbyn asking him if he did vote against it, because I thought it was important to discuss it. I would very much like to know why he voted against it, because there are records, I have looked, he did in fact vote against it. However, there is something, I'll let her get to the end of her answer, and we'll talk about this. Time and math make up economic constructs of the white man, so clearly Omegon is just suffering from oppression. You're quite right. The only way to fix that is to donate to Sinatra Says' Streamlabs. Oh, hang on. There we go.
What we've also done is listen to councils, given them extra flexibility. For example, they've called for a long time to have the borrowing cap lifted so they could build more homes, and we've done exactly that. Listened to councils and given them what they wanted.
But to add to that then, it is commendable that the national living wage has gone up. I think we can all agree there. And serene she is, they're just very see-through. It is commendable that the national living wage goes up. But as is the case, that isn't all that it appears. As a consequence of that, and the tax bar being raised to, I think, 12.5 now, you make 12.5 grand before you pay tax. You pay national insurance after 5 grand, I think. I do my tax returns myself. I think it's about 5.5. National insurance isn't much, though. It's maybe £150 a year. Well, this is where it gets funny, because you've raised the tax bar. You've increased national living wage. But by giving councils more flexibility, you've actually done something that negates the benefits of people earning more money and knowing they could keep more money. Because councils, a lot of them, mine especially, have increased their council tax by a few hundred, which is quite a lot of money for anyone to pay. Some councils up to £500 a year extra in council tax, which is almost a 50% increase in some areas. I get the whole pay your fair share and we should tax the rich more because, you know, how dare they make money. However, that's not going to solve the problem, and you're not actually helping people. Conservatives in this, I'm hammering you on this. You're not helping anyone when you then allow the council to basically take that extra money they're earning through a different taxation, or possibly harm them more, because increasing the living wage doesn't mean they're better off. In fact, they could be struggling more because of the increase in council tax. What's this? I saw something with my name on. I do apply. Hang on. Arlene Foster and Owen Patterson are meeting Michelle Barnier tomorrow. Curious, isn't it? We'll talk about it tomorrow, Serene, with Trups. Trups and I won't be streaming on Friday together because he has to do some go play pretend in a forest. So instead he and I will be streaming tomorrow, and Eurotruck will go to Friday, just for this week. But yes, I know Theresa May met with a bunch of leaders today as well, begging them, and we'll certainly get to that tomorrow, because Brexit is not the focal point of this stream.
Jeremy Corbyn!
Speaker, the problem is that child poverty is rising. In councils with the highest levels of child poverty, over £1,000 per household has been taken in funding cuts in the last decade. In some of the wealthiest areas of our country, they've only lost £5. Take Swindon, for example, where Honda recently announced 3,500 job cuts. Child poverty is over 1/3 higher than it is in Surrey. Yet in Swindon, they will have lost £235 per household in government funding cuts, whereas a household in Surrey will see more money from central government. Can the Prime Minister explain why Swindon faces cuts while Surrey gets more money?
I actually looked into this, and I couldn't work out why Swindon's losing money. But there was a point. What was it? Oh, right, yes, so there is a problem with this poverty thing, and it comes down to what I've often referenced as absolute and relative poverty. As many of you might ask, what is absolute poverty and what is relative poverty? Absolute poverty, which is the one the government operates under, is the state in which an individual cannot afford basic levels of anything, like food, clothing, shelter. Since like food and consumption and income, obviously, are the most important criteria to check on well-being of an individual, they then define what is more commonly known as the poverty line. The poverty line is a level that defines individuals living in absolute poverty as the ones who are below it. These are the ones who are unable to meet basic human needs. I, for 7 years of my adult life, qualified because I had to live on £5 a week, and it was not easy. To pay for food especially was hard. However, this is minimum income or consumption threshold that's needed for a healthy living differs from society to society, so it doesn't apply in every county of the country. This is very important. This is where relative poverty comes into it, which refers to the phenomenon of relative deprivation. It measures the degree of poverty. That is why there can be cases where people in relative poverty might be living above subsistence level, though they are able to maintain a basic minimum living standard, but then are not in a good enough condition to get past that or to move up in society, to improve past it. Right, so the problem with my excuse me, the thing with the poverty line is that this is fixed in terms of real consumption, and the World Bank measures extreme poverty in low-income countries, but relative poverty is measured against a poverty line that's defined in terms of the distribution of income, consumption or other living standards within a country. The best example is that the EU defines household as being at risk of poverty or social exclusion if its income after taxes and social benefits are less than 60% of the national median, adjusted for number and age of household members. It is complicated. Hello MC, good evening to you. It is quite complicated. The poverty line is a very complicated thing, especially as there are different versions of it. Relative poverty is quite an irritating term. I don't care for it. You are either poor or you are not, but I get the whole middle ground. I get it. I understand that. But you're not in absolute poverty at that point. You can afford to exist. That is the key difference. Labour are adopting this belief that relative poverty should take precedent, in the sense that these people can't get a better life for themselves. And there is a point for that as well, in the sense that there are those who turn to gangs, they turn to illegal activities to try and improve their lives. I get it, and we should definitely do something to address that, but throwing more money at it is not going to solve it. That's the problem. And I wanted to raise that with you all because I think it's very important.
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, actually what we see in terms of spending power per home is that the average spending power per home for the most deprived local authorities is over 20% higher than for the least deprived local authorities. That's Conservatives delivering for local councils.
I also looked into this. She is right and kind of wrong, but I don't want to explain just yet.
Mr. Speaker, homelessness is 3
Hello, Caitlin.
times higher in Swindon than in Surrey, and today we learn that 2/3 of councils do not have the funding necessary to comply with the Homeless Reduction Act. In Stoke-on-Trent, the council has lost £640 per household, yet child poverty is more than double the rate in Surrey, which has seen an increase in funding. Does the Prime Minister think that areas with the highest levels of child poverty do deserve to be facing the largest cuts in their budgets?
Okay, so the budgets are being cut. I'll agree to that. But how he's measuring it is slightly incorrect. Just going to say that for now.
What I think is that members across this House who are concerned about child poverty should take action to ensure that we're helping families to get more money into their pockets. It is It is this government that's frozen fuel duty. It's this government that's introduced the national living wage. It's this government that's given lower paid workers the highest increase. And it's this government that on Saturday saw 32 million households see a tax cut. If the right honourable gentleman really wants to help people out there with money in their pockets, he should be backing these measures by the government instead of voting against them.
I really want to know why he voted against them, because he did, and I really want to know why. Do they ever actually bring up solutions? No, this is a case of holding the Prime Minister to account. So no one actually has to come up with a solution at all. Instead, all they have to do is poke holes. Or try to. Another bit of post hoc, really. Not post hoc. Another little fallacy, I guess, is this concept that you can solve child poverty, you can solve homelessness by throwing money at it. No. It's a solution, yes, that you could throw money at them to get shelter, throw money at them to get them into work programs, but there aren't any work programs available that will take them in that circumstance. They have to be those homeless people need to be rebuilt. That's a simple fact. The majority need to be rebuilt, whether they be addicts or whether they just be long-term homeless or short-term even. Throwing money at it doesn't solve it. One has to understand why they are homeless, the individual, rather than the group. It gets complicated, I guess. It's frustrating. It is a shame there are homeless people in this country. It really is. And I don't think Corbyn's solution will work. I know he cares about human rights, and he really does care. That is known. I in fact respect him immensely for it. But if he's thinking of using money, ironically no less a socialist, using money to solve a problem, then he needs to be better at his politics.
The reality is that under this government 500,000 more children have gone into relative poverty, and in
Relative.
Stoke-on-Trent alone, 4,000 food bank parcels were handed out to children last year. And if...
Yeah, they were. I don't know what to say to that. It's a shame that they had to do that. I really admit that. But again, you're arguing from relative poverty's position as opposed to absolute poverty. Individual circumstance would lead me to believe that a number of those cases could in fact be from people spending beyond their means. People who've accrued debt, having to pay interest on it. You know what debt interest is, don't you? I don't know. It's frustrating to try and explain it to somebody who doesn't care for money, all the while moaning about money.
If it wasn't bad enough, it's about to get rather worse. Tory proposals on the new funding formula for councils will make poorer areas even poorer. They're removing the word deprivation from the funding criteria. In a phrase that George Orwell would have been very proud of, they've called this the fairer funding formula.
I think it's actually more of an optics issue. When you have the word deprivation there, it implies a level of desperation and, well, actual suffering. Giving it something that's a bit more PG is very WWE of it.
Areas like Stoke will lose out even more. Can the Prime Minister explain why she wants to give less funding to the most deprived parts of our country?
No, that's not what we're doing. What we are doing is ensuring that we have a fairer... We are ensuring that we have a fairer funding formula across local authorities, but we're also ensuring that we're putting more money and making more money available for local authorities.
It's worth noting that with austerity coming to an end, more money is going to be available. A fairer funding formula implies a means-assessed funding formula. That's what it implies. I have to wait until I'm able to actually look at it to be able to determine whether or not that is in fact correct, although I have a strange feeling it is.
For those local authorities to spend, but let's just see what we see from council after council up and down the country. If people want to ensure they have good local services and are paying less in council tax, that's what they see under Conservative councils. There's a clear message. If you want to pay less council tax and have good local services, vote Conservative.
Interesting point in the chat. When the poor pull out their new iPhone by Glenn, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I only recently managed to save up enough money to buy a pair of Nike Air Maxes. There are kids from poor families here who walk around in a new pair every week, and I'm sat back thinking, your parents collect the doll. How many organs have they sold to get you these new trainers? This is just sickening. My mum had to work 4 jobs just to get me a pair of £15 high-techs, and I had to make them last 2 years. This is embarrassing, I guess.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately for the Prime Minister, the truth is when Labour controls local councils, households pay on average £350 less.
Before he continues, actually, you just raised a point, Davey. Vote Conservative. What Theresa May's just done there is imply there will be an early general election. That's what she's just done. By doing that, either there are midterms coming up of some kind, by-elections for others, or she's going to call an early election, because that's what it sounds like.
Than those living in Tory areas. The average council tax per dwelling in Labour council areas is £1,169 compared to £1,520 in Tory council areas. The Society of Local Authority Chief Executives called the fair funding formula decision perverse. And even before this new formula kicks in, councils are losing out now. A Conservative council leader said earlier this year, we are really short of money. I mean, there is no money.
That sounds ironic, doesn't it? Since that was the very first thing that Cameron noticed when he went into office in 2010, was that memo that said there is no money
for him to run his services. What does the Prime Minister say to local authorities struggling to make ends meet while her government continues to underfund the vital services that they deliver?
Well, that's debatable. Some of them went bankrupt because they overspent. Some now have the option to borrow more money to be able to build houses, something which I don't support at all. I think you want to build more houses, have the money to do it. But that's just because I'm an individual and I think of it very narrow-mindedly.
We have, over the years, asked local councils to take some difficult decisions in relation to living within our means. Why did we have to do that? We had to do that because we were left the biggest deficit in our peacetime history by the last Labour government.
Yeah, this is going to come up a lot. People seem to not want to accept that 2010 was an incredibly dark time for us. You need to come up once in a while out of your leaky submarine. I have an ever so slightly blocked nose that is starting to piss me off. I need to use a nose inhaler, so I'm going to mute for a second. Hopefully it'll fix. Hopefully I sound a little better for the time being. But yeah, Brown and Blair fucked the economy. It is that simple. They fucked it. They fucked it bad. And some really difficult decisions had to be made. I could not, personally. My nieces and nephews all had a cold, so my body is trying to get a cold while simultaneously rejecting it. I'm not sick though. I only have a blocked nose. That is it. So I do apologise if I sound congested or you hear any. It's not intended, and of course I don't want to trigger anyone with the mouth breathing. Unfortunately, my body's repelling and doing a really good job because all I've got is a blocked nose. So again, very sorry. It's not hay fever though. I don't have hay fever issues. I don't get that. Because, yeah. Yeah. Glad you're staying strong, Evertrine Queen. Don't forget the EU elections. Yes, well, let's hope they don't have us involved. Because if we're involved in that, that's just embarrassment. A national embarrassment. Excuse me.
political choice made to impose austerity on local government has hit the poorest and worst off, the worst in every one of our communities across the country. Since 2010, 50 pence of every pound has been stripped from local authorities by her government. That is the reality of what life is like for those trying to deliver services. Mr. Speaker, the evidence is clear. The Tories have abandoned communities across the country. They've left towns and cities to fend for themselves after 9 years of vindictive, damaging austerity.
Yes, and that's why they voted leave. Don't you think that was a bit of a damning statement or a wake-up call to, you know, connect better with the rest of the UK?
1,000 fewer Sure Start centres, one of the greatest achievements of the last government. 760 fewer youth centres. And
yes, but people think youth centres are the fix. I would point out, with society changing the way it has, for example, the internet is so big now, the high streets are dying. Social media has taken over. People don't need to go outside to talk to friends when they can talk to them on Discord. So, one could argue these social centres, social clubs, aren't as important as they once were. There was one where I grew up called the Sovereign. Essentially, all the chavs went there and pissed everyone off by ruining everything for everyone.
And a social care system in absolute crisis. Child poverty is up.
Relative.
Violent crime is up. And
yes, it is. That one, actually, because they're being sold by councils to make money. I know they are perfectly valid delusions. I know. The violent crime going up, that is an actual issue we can all talk about, because now London, UK has been called Bloodbath Britain because so many people have been stabbed and murdered this year, and so many of those people, after investigations have been found to be truly innocent. Are we sure this is politics? What I see is a bunch of traitors squabbling over who gets to pull the trigger first. Yes, I tend to agree. Is this politics? No. This is Corbyn's last question. Have you noticed he's making a very grand moral statement? He's going to blame it on austerity, forgetting why it had to happen. And of course, with any action, there is always going to be a consequence. The consequence was a lot of people got left behind. I know this because I was one of them. Okay? I know this because my dreams were destroyed. They were destroyed because of the economic crash. My career gone. I didn't blame anyone for it though. I just got on with it. To the point where now I basically do cleaning and make YouTube videos. And it pays all my bills. Thanks to lovely people like you, I'm able to do this as what I could consider to be almost a full-time job. I don't treat it like that though, because I think if I did that I'd get bored. Treat it as a hobby, I enjoy it. But the point is, I'm well aware of how the austerity hurt people, but I understood it. I knew it had to happen because I couldn't, even my friends, housemates did economics at university, they couldn't think of another way out. And it was over government spending. We know it was. We know what Labour did, and I'm sorry if you're a Labour supporter in my chat, but Blair and Brown fucked us. I felt sorry for Gordon Brown when he became Prime Minister, but then I remembered for 10 years before then, he was the Chancellor. In fact, the only person I felt sorry for, truly, was Alistair Darling, who became the Chancellor for Gordon Brown. I only felt sorry for him, though, because there was no chance of him fixing the damage that Brown did. It's actually embarrassing and sad. But I understood all the decisions that had to be made. And now blaming it on austerity is stupid. It's not a fair assessment. Because you're forgetting why it had to happen. You're ignoring that. Because you think the only solution to this is to throw money at it. And that, to me, is unacceptable. You are running the risk, and we know your policies. you are going to end up much like people who erase history. Because you're not acknowledging it, you are immediately giving me the warning signs that I would never vote for you because of it, that you would repeat history, and that to me is unacceptable. I accept that some communities have been left behind, not just racially, but I mean people who are poor, and to be poor is not simply a racial thing. Poverty doesn't know race. Poverty is exactly that. It is struggling. And of course there are places where this has happened, where people have been left behind, and I feel so bad for them. If it were not for my sister... In fact, I will share one detail of my life. When my mother passed, my sister that was in the car with her was injured horrifically. She, because of the insurance payout, decided to make sure that my sisters and I had a roof over our head as a guarantee by buying our mother's old house. Solely so that if we ever struggled, we had that. Because prior to that, we struggled. You know, that's the only out we had, a bit of good luck we had, that came from something truly horrendous. I just, you know, I'm going somewhere with that and I can't remember now. I'm going to go back to him.
And homelessness and rough sleeping is also it. This government, Mr. Speaker, stands for tax cuts for the richest and swinging cuts.
Okay, tax cuts for the richest. Yes, because it keeps them in the country paying taxes. Closing loopholes, by the way, that were available under the last Labour government. They've been doing that as well to make sure those who are rich are still paying the correct amount of tax. Remember those loopholes that a number of celebrities used, creating companies that never actually did anything to offset their taxes? Yeah. Weirdly, the Conservatives are the ones that have been closing those down.
For the rest, will the Prime Minister now admit that far from tackling the burning injustices she talked about, her government's cruel and unfair policies have pushed councils to the brink and left those just about managing not being able to manage at all? That is her legacy.
I like that there was a question and then he ended with "that's her legacy." Caitlin, I'm sorry, you're me. I would like bacon and peanut butter as well, and I have neither. Serene, things have gotten better for me, thankfully, because of YouTube. If it were not for this, I wouldn't be who I am now. Much better place, and with the support I get from you guys, I do fantastic. Although I do still need to do that part 3 to Amber. That's going to challenge my patience a bit. US need to close loopholes too. I did not know there were many of them. I know we have still got a number of them to get through though, in our country, and I would like them closed. Of course, if there's an option to, if I was in their position, I'd do the same thing. Of course I would. But that's because I'm a poor person. Give me money and I'm going to want to keep most of it, you know.
I'm proud to lead a government that's seen more children in good schools, more doctors, more jobs, lower...
Okay. The good school thing, fantastic. They do need to eat though, Teresa. I know you haven't got any kids and all that, but they do need to eat. More doctors. Not entirely true. Actually, more of them are retiring younger, voluntarily because they can, because the pensions they get from their general practices are quite large, and because their salaries are like $100,000 a year. We're not actually offsetting as well as you think. In fact, we have quite a lot of jobs available in the NHS for doctors because we don't have enough doctors. Okay.
Lower unemployment, lower taxes. That's Conservatives delivering across the country for everyone. And what would we see with the Labour government under the Right Honourable Gentleman? Destroying our defences, abandoning our allies, billions more in borrowing, fewer opportunities and higher taxes for everyone. That's a Labour future and we will never let it happen.
Unfortunately for you, because of Brexit, it is inevitable. Consider this the Agent Smith comment. Labour becoming the next government is inevitable with you at the helm of the Conservative Party.
And Antoinette Sandbatch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Some argue for completely free markets and self-regulation by big business, but this can lead to harmful content and...
Okay, everyone, I want you to buckle up. If you hear a clicking, it's a cough sweet in my mouth. You're about to hear some of the most annoying drivel ever. Before the paper perv, this idiot. Hello, Churchy McBiscuit. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. And John Brasser, hello.
And extreme views being promoted. The tech giants who act as publishers have shown that they won't act without regulation. Will the Prime Minister join me in welcoming the publication of the Online Harms White Paper and support the levelling of the playing field between print and broadcast media and the tech giants?
I'm not against a completely free media, by the way. A free market, either. I'm not against a completely free market. But this heavy regulation of the internet will just lead to more people getting VPNs. More people getting creative, because there is a way around it. There really is. You don't have to have a VPN either. You can get around it. It's not hard. But it's holding the companies accountable for what someone says on their site. They have terms of service. When they do it and they get caught, they're removed. That's it. Escalating it further, harmful opinions also. Not the creator, what is a harmful opinion is quite a vague thing to say. Let's call it nebulous. Bendy brain snatchy batch. That is something. Hello, Churchy McBiscuit.
Can I say to my honourable friend, she's raised a very important point that I think matters to people up and down this country. The internet can be absolutely brilliant at connecting people and providing people with information and connecting people not just nationally but across the world. But for too long the companies haven't done enough to protect users, especially children and young people, from harmful content. And that's not good enough. And that's why we've listened to campaigners and parents. We're putting a legal duty of care on internet companies to keep people safe. And I would like to congratulate my right honourable friends, the Culture Secretary and the Home Secretary, for the work that they have done on this issue. Online companies must start taking responsibility for their platforms and help restore public trust in their technology.
But they already were. They really do. They already have terms of service. People break them and they get caught. Eventually they all do. They are either forced to remove the harmful content. You still have the oil painting for me. Oh, that's awesome. I should DM you about that later, Nico. Companies, some of these tech giants also go to committee meetings with the governments, where they're taken to task by those governments. The governments want more censorship. That's a fact. They all do. But the tech giants, they're not... Okay, they are political. But they also want a certain level of freedom. They themselves also want to clamp down on what is considered extremist. Problem is, there is the obvious political bias that I earlier mentioned with those tech giants. And that plays a part, where they only really focus on one particular side. Until ban like China. Yes, I know. But, I don't give a shit. I do what I want, okay? Donate to my Streamlabs so I can get a VPN. I'm kidding. It's streamlabs.com/Sinatra says.
Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, as we know, is the anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, a peace accord that...
Oh, hang on. I forgot to include this. I made it PNG, so we got him on the screen now. Okay? The paper fiddler is a permanent mainstay on the screen. Oh, I'm going to sneeze again. My apologies. Excuse me. I do apologise for that.
not only ended violence in Northern Ireland, but brought stability for all of us living throughout the United Kingdom. Mr. Speaker, Brexit threatens to undermine that.
Oh,
to drag
God.
us out of the most successful peace project in history, the European Union. What a tragedy. Mr. Speaker, it is now 1 week since talks began between the Tory government and the Labour Party. I want to ask the Prime Minister, at any point during these talks, has a second referendum been offered on the government side of the negotiating table? Yes or no, Prime Minister?
Right, so the rumours that were circulating were yes. I had heard the rumours, but I don't see how this is important. In fact, I would argue it's a loaded question. He wants to know if the government is starting to consider a second referendum. The problem is, and Teresa's going to bring it up, won't someone please think of the paper? Perhaps someone should give me a meme of that. That'd be great. With Blackford here. Perhaps I'll write it on the paper, in fact. But the problem is that Parliament themselves have rejected it, and Teresa's going to bring it up. It doesn't matter if it came up in the negotiations, because it doesn't change that Parliament itself does not back a second referendum.
My position on a second referendum, the government's position has not changed. The House has rejected a second referendum 2 times. Now, when we come to a deal, we will have to ensure that legislation goes through this House. Of course, it may be that there are those in this House that wish to press that issue as the legislation goes through. But my position on this has not changed.
Ian Blackford.
Well, it was a very simple question, Mr. Speaker. Has a referendum been offered, yes or no? Mr.
I don't think it matters, because it won't happen. It can't happen. It would be a constitutional nightmare, and it would undermine democracy at the very basics.
Speaker, people can't have faith in a backroom deal cooked up by 2 leaders who don't possess the ingredients to hold their parties together, never mind hold these islands together. Scotland won't be forced to accept what these 2 Brexit parties are preparing to serve up.
No, they also won't accept what England has done to them, and I think also, was it Wales and Northern Ireland also voted to leave? Doesn't matter, really, because either way, you were outvoted. I would also point out to you that you want to leave the UK and join the EU, but the EU won't let you join anyway, because you don't offer anything to them and you have nothing for them, in the sense that you don't have your own economy, you don't really have anything that doesn't come from us. In fact, courtesy of your new tax hikes, people are leaving your country. Congratulations. And perhaps they should change Scotland's song to Scotland the Whinge, because I think that would be accurate. The problem is, there are a number of Scottish people I know and like, and they are really cool people that voted leave, and there are some that also voted remain that I like, and they're cool people. You, acting on their behalf, are a fucking moron. Your only interest is stopping this. That is it. You think we benefit from just staying in that lane. You are a coward, because you are unwilling to take a risk. Now yes, Scotland voted to remain, but the UK voted to leave. The UK supersedes Scotland's precious devolved administration, you coward. You fat paper perv cunt. Oh, I should add balding as well. I would love to know who tailors your suit, because there's no way you bought those from Primark. I don't think they do a inside leg that short that isn't in kid size, and they don't do kids' waist that big. I should also put you on a sex offenders register for paper fiddling.
There is no such good thing as a good Brexit. There is no such thing as a good Tory-Labour Brexit deal. The Prime Minister must recognise the difference between what she believes is duty, but what the rest of us see as delusion.
Lol.
In her final days as Prime Minister, will she accept the EU offer of a long extension, accept that she has run out of road, and accept that the only choice now is to put this back to the people?
Okay, so I'm going to put this to you, the people. Right. If you think a second referendum happens, right, now don't press anything yet. Let's say hypothetically it does, okay? Press 1 if you think leave wins, press 2 if you think remain wins, and press 3 if you think it will be as equally confusing as it was the first time, in that it will be very close. I think this is important because I think it will be very close, but I still think leave will win. I do not think remain wins. It is simple as that. It is so confusing Because yet again, you want to put it back to the people. But you're not saying on the deal, are you, Ian? You're saying on leave and remain. That's the problem. Because yet again, people will vote leave again, and I think they will, but they're not voting on the terms. And I think it will be just as close as it was last time, by a mere 1 million votes. Where's my sarcasm sign for that? Let me go get my sarcasm sign, hang on. If we're going to do this properly, we'll do it properly, hang on. Come on, sarcasm sign, where are you? Oh, okay, you're not going to open the file. OBS is crashing, fantastic. There we go. Right, YouTube, Omegon, 2019 files, Chibis. Not that one. There we go. Put that there. There you go. There you go. You're all welcome. I'll put that there for now. But yeah, basically, I don't believe that you'll then be sated. I think you'll think that yet again the people haven't spoken on the terms of the exit. You will shift the goal votes posts. If we had a second referendum, Davey, I would abstain. I would. I have fulfilled my democratic duty. Taking it back to me to decide again would insult me. I think... Thank you, MC. The dress is glorious. I would be very upset because my mother voted in that referendum. It was her last democratic vote, and she voted leave. Unless her vote would be respected and carried over as well, I'm not getting involved. People want to push for a second referendum because there are more young people than there were last time that can vote. I think that is a really stupid position to have. They have a right to say something, of course, but they have to, first of all, as it is the democratic way, they must respect what happened. Yeah, I think we are done here, people. I need to get a nose inhaler and stick it up my nose for the remainder of the night, and pop another cough sweet. So thank you very much, Achivia Megon. Thank you, Serene. I will be back here tomorrow to host a political recap. My friend Diskanar is currently streaming over on his Twitch channel. I will put it up on the screen for you. Here he is. Oh, ignore that. Blackford and me. Diskanar is currently streaming over on Twitch. There's 5 people watching him, so please go over there and show him some love. I'd very much appreciate it. He has 19 followers, and I'd very much like to get him to 50. So please consider helping me out with that. And yeah, thank you all for listening. I am sounding a bit better than I used to for the last 2 months. I do apologise. Perhaps one day I'll explain why I sounded so off. Not yet, though. Have a lovely evening. Good night.